Oh, first let me show you about, so shape length. I noticed a lot of people use that field. The first thing to know about shape length is when you bring something into a geodatabase, it will automatically make that field of shape length or shape area if it's a polygon, length if it's a line. You won't get one with a point. But it's kind of meaningless a lot of the time. I think this one was in feet, but it's difficult to figure out how to get that to be right. So what you want to do is go in and make another field that is meant to store like feet or something. So the way you could do that, so let's go into buildings, I guess. I can open the attribute table, and you'll notice it has shape length and shape area, right? But the problem is I look at that and I say 12,800 watt. Like, I don't really know what that is. You know, it might be feet and I can go measure it, but it's like, you know, that wouldn't be worth the time. So what you can do is add a new field and just call it maybe square feet for a polygon, and make it a double so it can hold a number. And you can right click on the field name, and this is what we'll talk about a little bit in another, about Kylie's wetlands as well. You can go field calculate, and if, oh, I'm sorry. For a distance, you do right click and go to calculate geometry. So these two are very similar. Field calculate will let you put actual values in. Calculate geometry will let you add in lengths and areas. Do square feet, and then you can see here it's going to say, what do you want to do? I want to do the area of it. You could do the perimeter, or you could say the coordinate of the center point. So you want to do the area, and then you have all these options, right? Square meters, square kilometers, hectares, but square feet is the most typical. And now you got the square feet for all the buildings. And it turns out that that was what the shape area was, because they're the same here. So that's one thing, how to add like actual lengths you're sure about. And if you had a street, you could do miles, you know, or linear feet. And you know, with all this, I don't expect you guys to like remember how to do this. The whole point is video. You can always go back and see exactly, you know, how that one thing was done. If you remember that you've seen it at least once in class, it's like, you know, should be good enough. And I find it takes me watching a video, then trying it, then watching the video again to actually get most of the stuff that I do. So I think this will work. So, okay, so we have Kylie's, Kylie made 3 wetlands files. And the reason was because if you look at this map, you remember there's a few different types of wetlands shown on here, right? There's that type, and there's these type over here. And if you go to the legend, you can see that this is what they all mean, right? So we got wetlands and we got vernal pools that are, some are significant, some are not, and then we have man-made vernal pools. So Kylie took note, I think, of whether it was a wetland or whether it was a vernal pool. One of the 3. It was just yes or no.
Yeah, I did wetlands, vernal pool, and there were some that had both markings on them.
Okay, perfect. So then, in each of the files, to keep track of it, Kylie put a 1 or a 0 for the wetlands or vernal pools. So does it, and then Kylie also made 3 different files here. So if I wanted to put all those, oh, and then the other thing to say is that they all have the same structure. So each one has a wetland field and a vernal pool field. So if we combine them all, we should be able to just pull out into one field what each one is, I think. Does anybody remember what the tool to combine a bunch of different files is called? Nice. Merge. Yes. So we're going to go to geoprocessing, and then we're going to merge these all together. One thing about merge is you'll have this. Oh, that wasn't. You'll get this field map down here. So if there was another field name in there that was like in a third file that was like wetlands with an S, you would see it show up here because every unique field from all three gets put here. So we're going to put this in our database. Wetlands combined. Oh, combines. Okay. So now we have this one file. That is all of them put together. So I'm going to remove the other. Well, maybe I'll just turn them off for now. So then if we look at the attribute table, we can see that all the zeros and ones got put in the same fields, right? And some of them have both a 0 and a 1, and some just have a 0. So my thought would be, let's see if these are numbers, strings. So then what we could do is, well, let's make a new field, and I'll show you without trying to explain it first. So we'll make a text field, and we're just going to combine them together into one string. So map ID maybe. So I have a new field, and I'm just going to have it spit back the first one and the second one, which since it actually is one is harder to understand. We're going to field calculate, and we're going to say take wetlands and then append it with maybe a dash to vernal pool data. So the way you tell it to add just a string, like you could add any kind of a text you wanted. You do an and you can put in quotes a little dash, and then another and. I expect you to remember that. You can come back to the video. And then vernal pool. And this is more just to see that this is possible. So now we have this little code that is 1-1 if it's both wetlands or vernal pools, 1-0 if it's just a wetland, and 0-1 if it's just a vernal pool. Some of them didn't have any data, which is fine. They'll just have a dash, and we can check those out later. Was that ridiculous, or does that make sense? It's okay if it's ridiculous and it doesn't make any sense. All right. So anyway, so then what we do, and it's so the way I would have done it if there were numbers is I would have added the numbers I think together, and then it wouldn't have been as helpful because I would have needed to know. Oh right, I wanted to do one more thing just to show you the field calculating before we do this. Sorry. So now we have this code that's somewhat meaningless, right? It's hard to understand. So we're going to sort by the code, and we're going to add another field that would be map description. And we're going to have it be text. And might want to make this one a little longer, so I'm going to make it like 100 characters. If you just make it 50 and then you want to do more than 50 characters, it'll just cut you off and be like, So the way I'm going to use field calculating here is I am not going to do a query. However, I should. Yeah. The other way to do it is just literally just select those. Right. So I've selected all the ones that are just dashed that are unknown. So I'm going to do. Once I've selected them, if I field calculate now, it'll only populate the ones that have been selected with text. So I'm literally just going to write a quote, and then I'm going to put unknown for these. And we can fix those later. Quote, text, quote. Into a text field, we'll just put that value in there. Which this is going to come in handy when we're editing things on campus. Because you're out there and you're editing, but then you realize you want to change this whole block of things to something else. So then the 0-1s are just vernal pools, so I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. And since I sorted them, I know if I hold shift and I click, these are all the vernal pools. I'm just going to replace what's in the quotes with vernal pool. And then we have a set of wetlands that are just wetlands, 1, 0. Now, the reason I had to combine them was because, if you just sorted it by wetlands and you tried to select them like this, you'd get 1s and 0s in the vernal pools column, and they wouldn't be, sorted in the right way, to actually do this easily. What are those wetlands? Well, it's a good question. So I was thinking that for this homework, we would, come up with, since we all know now, like how the attribute table kind of plays into the data collection. The best thing to do is come up with a plan that's like, okay, I'm going to be drawing polygons. So, and what are the set of things I'm going to need to capture, right? And of course, you might not know completely in the beginning. But if you look at the map and you say, I'm going to need to collect places that are wetlands and vernal pools and both, then it's like every time you draw a polygon, just draw it so you can have a separate polygon for each of those types of things. So if there's like a polygon that has like half has both and the other half just has one, then make it as like unique as possible. So you'd have to draw another polygon for that part that had both, because it's a different classification. Yeah. Especially instead of like layering them on top of each other, it would be just attributes that would say. I mean, you could lay them on top of each other as well. It would just get more complicated. And then we could say both. But I mean, you didn't lose any data, right? Like this is completely legitimate way to do it, right? Because it's complicated. You have multiple things, and a lot of times, you might have like 5 things that you need to collect about. So it actually does make more sense to do this, because then you can do all sorts of ways of looking at the data, just with the 0s and 1s on what's there. So then we can label this guy. So we're going to do categories, or we can symbolize. And we're going to do a map description. And so a little bit on picking colors here. These are the standard colors, but a lot of times they don't work for me. So if you go to more colors, a lot of times I'll go and I'll say I'll like a color that might work to begin with. So let's see, for both, maybe we do like red and blue and like a mix of that for both. So, that's kind of a crappy color. But if I go, I can just go here to more colors. And I go ahead and go to this. HSV is always more helpful because you're not really changing the color, you're just changing the grays in the color. And more muted colors often look much better. So you can see what it's going to look like down there. So actually that kind of a lighter color I like more. And then for something like this, it's not really a boundary. Like sometimes a boundary line you don't want to put if it's like not a hard boundary, like the edge of a house. And for wetlands, it's not really. It's just, you know, it doesn't exactly end anywhere, and it probably is different at this point. So unknown, probably light red, I guess. Vernal pool, let's make the green ones. It's not a bad green. I like this top green here, light apple. It's a little bright though, so I'm gonna go, oops. I'm gonna go change it, and I'm gonna tone it down in the HSV, and I'm just gonna brighten it up, like a little bit. And in ArcMap, it's a little frustrating because when you change colors in here, you'll see it on the screen, but that's not necessarily what it's gonna look like when you print that out. So the way I pick colors is actually a lot from experience, and you'll notice if you start printing these things, what the tricks are. Like what you see on the screen is not necessarily what you get off the printer. And then we'll do blue. This top blue is pretty good. Tone that down a little bit. Okay. And then you don't need to see all other values. And then in here, just preparing to put this in a legend, you can click on that and change it to map description. Oh, well, maybe just say type of wetland. All right. So one thing to know, if all these are in the same file and they're overlapping for any reason, it might make it harder to see. So there might be more work to be done here, but just trying to think of a way. Kind of, because I think there's a lot of overlapping things, right? Like polygons.
It's mostly like the vernal pools that are on top of the wetland.
Oh, perfect.
So
All right, so that.
small circles.
So this is a good lesson, right? So if you have, a lot of times if you symbolize something like this, ArcMap doesn't care that something's not on top of something else. So there's this trick, and you can come back and check the video because you will forget where this is. If you go to advanced and you go to symbol levels, you can tell it how to order them. This is one of those that I actually do, you know, like the things that I show you, I actually use a lot. Like it's not like the book where it shows you every way to do things. So this is like common stuff that, frankly, I don't think a lot of people know is there. But if we click on the vernal pools and we send it to the top of that list, and maybe move wetlands to both to the bottom, certainly unknown at the bottom, and then okay, we should see green things pop up on the map. Well, I think I noticed actually there wasn't that one there before.
Those should be the only ones that overlap. Those red ones were like, there was like a gap in there that was not a wetland. So I guess I just didn't, I should have cut out.
No, if it's on the map, I would have collected it and just been like, you know, for more research later. Because it's always better when you're digitizing. Like you want to just get your digitizing done, and then move on and kind of like, you know, work on your data like more. Instead of like tracking down too intensely like one small thing. You know, that's always what did I say last semester? I forget. It's like instead of lose it, just scale back, you know. Okay, so I'm gonna